and welcome to Grace and Lottie's. Elizabeth here, going to be doing something I've been doing on live streams a whole lot, but have not actually sat down and recorded a video. So I'm back in the pink studio rather than my kitchen today to get to kind of go through step by step what you need to know if you want to try to make your own watercolor and gouache paints. So the first thing I want to start with is the materials you are going to need. So we're going to cut over to desk cam now. And I'm going to kind of start going through all of this. So the first thing you're going to need is pigments. And I've got two lovely pigments right here. One is Ultramarine Blue green shade, and the other, you'll see it says Lazurite Afghan Extra Class. Now, what's interesting is this is the same pigment, but this is kind of. This is a synthetic version right here. You can say it's a synthetic inorganic. And this is the natural version made from lapis. Now, it's not quite as high of a grade to get that super deep blue, but it's still the real stuff right here. So it's a natural inorganic right there. So interesting to see the two pigments next to each other right here. But you've got to start with pigment. And the next thing you're going to need is you're going to need a medium. Now, right here, I've got some of my watercolor medium that I make here. We'll get to how to make this later. But right now, just know that you'll need a medium for your paint to go in. All paint is pigment plus medium. It doesn't matter if it's watercolor, gouache, acrylic, oil. They all start with pigment and the binding medium. Like right here, I've got some linseed oil. I haven't even opened it right here. Combine that, and you've got an oil paint combined with watercolor medium, and you have watercolor paint. So that's pretty simple right here. Now the other thing, if you want to do gouache, the other ingredient you'll need is calcium carbonate. Now you see I've got it in like an old jar here that I've recycled because this comes in a giant package. Like you get a lot of calcium carbonate. It is not expensive. It's also known as limestone powder. It is an easy thing to get. Tons of places online have it. So right here, this is food grade. Like I could eat this if I wanted to. I really don't want to eat it. But anyway, that is what this is. Calcium carbonate right there. So those are the basic ingredients. Now we need to think about the tools that we need to make paint. And the first one that people always think about, and I'm going to bring it over here. We're going to set down a little mat here for a reason. A flat glass plate. And then we have my muller. Now, a paint muller is something you need, and you need a mulling plate. The big thing that's important is this has a flat bottom right here, and this is flat. Now, some people will use a candlestick to do this. I do not have a candlestick, but if you have a candlestick at home and want to try this, this is the closest I have. You need to make sure it has a flat bottom. This does not have a flat bottom, so it wouldn't work, but this part needs to be flat. So, but mullers, there's a bunch out there. This is one I like. It fits my hand really comfortably. You can see right here the distance. Some of them just have a little knob at the top to hold on to. This sits comfortably. When people see me mulling, they don't realize that my arm is doing actually very little of the work. It's mostly my shoulder because the hand grip is right here and I'm just letting my hand rest. So what you'll do is on a flat mulling plate, and this is why it needs to be flat, and sadly not just like a glass plate that you've got somewhere where it's really pretty. It's like it's mostly flat, but you need it completely flat to mull right here because you're gonna mull out your paint and then you will end up needing your palette knife. This is the next right here, palette knife, so that you can scrape in. Oh, I forgot a tool that we need even before this. We need something to measure with. So you'll need things to measure with. Most paints, you kind of start with a 1-to-1 ratio. From there, you'll play around. Different pigments behave differently, but you will need something to measure with. I use a set of measuring spoons I've had forever. Then then you mull. Then you will need your palette knife to be able to scrape in the paint. You will want a brush and probably some little paper right there so that you can then choose to swatch the paint, kind of see what it looks like. If you notice, hey, I'm not real happy with this color, I want to adjust it, like especially if you're mixing some pigments, you can add a little bit to adjust. Always want to make sure if you add a little pigment, add a little medium so that you don't end up out of your ratio right there. But when you are done, you're going to want something to store that paint in. And most people you'll see have tubes. Like you can buy watercolor in tubes. They will be open on the back. I don't have any because I don't use tubes. And you'll fold over to crimp the end right there. But most of the time I use half pans, and these are my little half pans right here. I make these because I don't use plastics. Now, I had these already sitting here from a long time ago, so I brought this. So if you had like these, you could put the paint, something like this. But I like to store and I like to put my paints in half pans, or I put them on a dot card, which is another thing that you could even use right here, where you put little bits of paint onto a card. These travel great, and you could just re-wet and use. So if you're doing pans though, you're going to want to fill little by little by little. Otherwise you end up with a big giant valley in the middle, where once the paint dries, it sinks down. Because, as you will see when we make our medium here in a minute for watercolor, it ends up with a lot of water in it. And when you're drying the paint, you're basically letting the water leave. So as it basically like kind of deflates. So you'll want to fill that quite a bit. If you're going to just be making a little and using it immediately, a little container like this is great, like especially if you're using it the next couple of days. This will work great. I don't recommend this for like long-term storage, but if you're going to be using it quickly, will work great. As well as like even a metal lip balm tin will work. If you've got some of those sitting around, will work absolutely great for it. So that's covered the tools. So let's go and learn how to make some medium so that we can actually make the paint. Here I am now in the kitchen, ready to make some of my watercolor medium. Now, we got to start not in my kitchen, but where we get the water. I go to a special spring to get that. Then I bring it home, we boil it. It has had some time to cool. So now it is time to actually make it. It took a couple of steps to get to here, but let's go ahead. We're going to add in water. Now, I'm not going to be putting exact measurements in. There are a bunch of recipes out there that are written that will be great. Plus, I worked really hard to get this proprietary one that I use in the paints that I sell. So it seems like I should probably not just give it away, right? So my special tool right here, yes, it is a coffee frother. We're gonna get it going in here. Now I'm adding, I use guar gum, I like it. And now we're going to combine the guar in here. This helps get the clumps out, otherwise it's a bit of a mess. And you could use an immersion blender here. I found this makes less air bubbles, so it's a little more friendly, but also does combine it. You want your water to still be a little bit warm, not completely cold as well. Okay, we are looking good. Make sure there's no little bits left in the thing, but look at that. Couple of bubbles, nothing big. Those will settle out pretty fast. Now, the next thing I'm going to add is vegetable glycerin because I like a vegan version, and the amount here to honey is very different. That took a little bit of trial and error to figure out here. So I'm going to add a little vegetable glycerin. This is the first amount I'm going to add in. Let me turn my blender back on. I can't do it with my left hand. I am trying here. I don't normally have a camera. And so now we're going to add in the vegetable glycerin. Right here. That's the first amount going in. Let's get it nicely combined. Okay, that's looking good. I'm gonna get just a little bit more here. It's not a perfect measuring cup amount. And since I use a measuring spoon for the next part, I couldn't have it like really well done ahead of time for this. So just a little bit more here. There we go. And then we are to the last ingredient. And the last ingredient is clove oil. Clove oil helps keep down both bacteria and mold. And it doesn't take a lot. It's one of those a little bit goes a long way. And that's why my medium, when I'm making paint, smells like cloves. It's actually really pleasant. Okay. And just some cloves here, clove oil here. There we go. And we combine that. Smells so lovely. And this will have it almost done. All the ingredients are in. Okay. From here, I will let that sit. The air bubbles come out. They come out better when they're in the pan. So that's why I let them sit here. The wider surface area allows bubbles to come out better. And then after that, I will put it in a mason jar and store it in the fridge. So that is what basically goes into making watercolor medium. It is really that fast because you just saw me do it in real time. So less than 5 minutes, well, aside from boiling the water. But if you use tap water, then you don't have to boil it. But you see what I'm saying. Less than 5 minutes, done and dusted. Now that we have our medium done, let's go ahead and see how it all combines. And let's actually make a little bit of paint here. I'm going to use my Ultramarine Blue that I have. Now, I don't need this for the shop right now, so we're only going to make an itty bitty bit right now, which is, let's see this guy right here. So I'm going to measure out a ½ teaspoon of pigment. And I have found if you want to make this a gouache instead of being a watercolor, right now you would add in calcium carbonate. I find it works well in like a 1/6. Look at me, I'm making a mess on my hands right here. Always a mess. I have found that it works well in a 1/6, so ratio to the pigment and medium is roughly a great spot for gouache. You may play around with it and find you like it a little different. That's part of the joy of making your own paint, is that you can experiment and figure out exactly what you like to do. So we'll make a little well right there. And now I'm going to add a ½ teaspoon of my medium. I always love getting it out because it smells like cloves. The clove oil smell. It's also fun once the pigment gets wet, it gets more saturated, because that's what saturation is like wetness. But anyway, it's really fun to see the color just become that more vivid, more saturated color right there. Now, first use of the palette knife is now I'm combining. I'm basically you mix, then you mull. You can see it is such a pretty shade of blue right here. It is so bright. It is such a happy color. Oh, my phone is making noises. I forgot to silence it. Can you tell I haven't recorded a video in a while? Anyway. Okay, this is looking pretty good. We are ready for mulling. Now, basically mulling is just smushing them together. If you want to think about old school, I like to picture, I am not Italian, but the old school grandmother, the nonna, who is making homemade aioli, and she's sitting there basically with the mortar and pestle grinding them together, and that is creating an emulsion. Same idea here. We are combining the pigment molecules with the medium and the binders that are in it. So if you use gum arabic, if you use guar, those are now getting pushed together with the pigment, and they are creating that emulsion or suspension that makes our paint, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's also cool that this method right here has been in use for centuries. This isn't new. This isn't fancy. This is the way it has been done right here. So how can you tell when you are done mulling? This is a big, big, big question that I get asked a lot. Number one, there shouldn't be any clumps. So you see how I've got clumps all around this area? That's a sign it's not done. And some pigments, when you mull them, they'll you can see that they'll create like little threads, and you can see that there's little bumps, kind of like slubs on a yarn. Like when you get a little, you don't want that. I joke on my streams regularly that nobody wants chunky paint. So you want to make sure that you're getting it really, really nice and smooth. Now, this pigment, the Ultramarine Blue that I get, is an easy mull. This one does not take very long. It comes together really quickly. I have some paints, we joke about Viridian on stream quite a bit, that takes a very long time to mull together. So it's one of those trust the process kind of things. If it's not coming, just keep going, you know, like Dory in Finding Nemo, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. That kind of thought with it. So as you can see, it has come together. I am not really seeing any clumps. I always like to kind of bring it together one time into the middle just to give it a double check. So this is my palette knife again, scraping it in. I will clean off my muller here in just a second as well. And we'll give it one more good mull. And this, so if you can see, there is some paint stuck to the muller. That is normal. This is why I'm doing this step right now, is to get those little clumps that are out there, that are stuck right there. I'm working really hard on this paint. I don't want to waste any of it. So now, there we go. Now we will mull again. And you see, this really is such a pretty color. I love vivid blues. This pigment is also really inexpensive compared to some pigments. Some pigment, and again, pigments vary. Some are not that expensive, some are really expensive. The natural form of this is one of the more expensive pigments. When it was purchased, like, ancient painters used to charge the patron for the pigments. And so that's why, because this one was expensive, it was only used in very special spots on paintings. It got reserved for very, very little spaces. Typically was used in church art for Mary's clothes. She got blue. And there we are, look at this. We've got lovely paint right here. You see I'm using circular motions and figure eights. Ooh. Just kind of working the edges back in. If you want to know a little bit more about mulling motions. You just don't want to go off the edge. Your paint should not be so runny that it runs off the edge. If your paint is that runny, that means you've got too much medium and not enough pigment. There we go. We have watercolor paint right here. If I had been a good YouTuber, I would have had a little thing for us to swatch on, and I don't. Let's see what I can grab. I think I may have a swatch piece on the desk behind me. Let's see what I got. Through the magic of editing, I have a piece of paper right here ready to go. Let's see what this looks like. Look at that color right there. Looks great. Now going back to ratios, if you notice that your paint is like way too thick, add a little bit more medium. If it's still not wanting to really, like, you'll know, like, once you start working, you'll be like, this paint doesn't feel right. It's not coming together. You feel free to add a little water too. I use vegetable glycerin, as you saw when we made the thing. Sometimes it needs a little bit of that to hold water into it. It's one of those things that you will learn the different pigments as you use them. Do not feel like you have to have it perfect the first time you make paint. A lot of it is trial and error, and that's okay. But just know that you'll have those little bits. Oh, I'm going to add a little bit of this, add a little bit of that. Try it, see what happens, test it. That's why I like to make in small batches. As I test it, it comes out okay. My friends absolutely love that I do this too. But anyway, so filling a pan, we're going to go to that right now. Now this is a little bit more than you really want to put in a pan, but we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how I fill pans right here, just very simply. Right, that. Now, because I do make paint in larger quantities, I do have little bottles that I do, and then I can squirt and come back and top off as needed. So this is as much as like one should have to start right here. So the rest I will put in my little container right here so that I can top it off later. Everyone streams used to seeing me put into my little bottles. Now, I've worked really hard to try to be I don't use single-use plastics in the packaging at all. And then I try to minimize where I use plastics at all, like in my process. And this was one of those areas where I couldn't figure out a way to not do it this way. And keep it to where like I'm not making too many half pans and constantly coming back and making paint. Because I reuse these. These get used a crazy amount, so. Now there we go. There is paint made. You guys got to see it all the way through. I've enjoyed the video. I've enjoyed getting to hang out with you as well and to kind of get to do something a little bit different here. I hope you found this informative and useful, and feel free to join me on live streams. I live stream Wednesdays and Fridays around 1 o'clock Central Time to typically around 4 o'clock Central Time, where we make paint, we chit-chat, we do fun things. Right now I am making sparkly paints, so that's been a little bit of fun getting to try those and see how they behave. It's a whole new world for me with that. But I'd love to have you join us there, as well as we've got the Discord. And if you want to get your own set of my paints, you can get the 3-pack right here of dot cards. Those are available over on the website. That'll be linked in the description down below as well. So if you want to try them, you can try them. Have them both in gouache and watercolor, both sets there. So that is it for today. I look forward to seeing you next time, hopefully in a live stream. Until then, bye.